Good morning from Maholic Outdoors. I am sitting at my archery bench. This is where I sit and tinker and build my own equipment, my own arrows. And if you don't, it's something you should learn how to do, the process of making your own arrow. And it's taken me a long time to get to where I need to be to have this assortment of arrows and different broadheads. But I know how to get the arrow I need, right? This has taken years to kind of get to this point. Now, the bow helps, right? My Matthews, I have a Halon 6. Um, and usually about every 10 years, I upgrade. I went from a switchback in 05, 06ish to the Halon in 16. And well, it's 2026 and I'm not finished with the Halon yet. That bow still is as lethal as I am. So, but when it comes to my arrows, if they're not perfect, and I made a comment in one of my past videos that I want to watch that arrow fly. And it probably comes from my recurve days where they didn't go that fast and you could watch it fly. My overall concern is not with arrow speed. It's more on perfect flight, and I want to shoot a multitude of broadheads and have them all impact the same, right? I want to be able to go from a mechanical to a fixed, from this fixed to that fixed, and have them all fly exactly the same. That is just where I'm at. And I am there, and I spend a great deal of time just tinkering with arrows, just tinkering. And one of the things, I sat down last night and I cleaned my bench. So this was one of those, I cleaned my bench and I had talked about a Rothar snuffer in one of my videos. And it's amazing how when you post a broadhead video, how people they respond. There's something about a broadhead. So when I looked at him, I cleaned up my bench, and it was one of the last broadheads I was putting away. And I said, I've never harvested a deer with a Rother snuffer, and I've never even shot one. I don't know how they fly. And so these are 100 grain snuffers. And when I shot my bears here back, about 5 or 6 years ago, I bought some 100 grain inserts. They're stainless steel inserts. And it just so happens that it fits right into the snuffer. And I hot glue all my heads in. And that way, if I want to take them apart, I can remove them. I can tinker with them. Once you JB weld something, epoxy it, you're done. It is what it is. The brass is in there. The aluminum's in there. So, I was just tinkering. I was just playing. And this one, if you use a collar like this, these weigh, I want to say about 15 or 16 grains. I was right, 16 grains. So 100 grains. By the time it's said and done, this particular arrow is about 512, 514. Now, if I laid it, I just don't have the room to lay it flat, but it's consistent with my others. I'm in the 530s. It's not so far off that I would, fear shooting it. Now, this typically is going to be, again, I prefer a fixed blade in tighter quarters where I'm driving it down through the top, down to the heart. But this prompted me just to make another mess. And it was, again, make your own arrows, become one with your equipment where, don't let somebody else work on it. If you don't have to, do your own work. The knowledge you gain is yours. So I have an older style fletching unit right here. It's a Jojan. It was made in Pennsylvania. I've had that thing for I don't even know how long. 25 years. I don't even know. And you can adjust both the front and the back of the arrow. And I did a couple of arrows last night, and it wasn't perfect. So this particular the new string I have on my halon wants to clock an arrow to the right. The other string I had clocked them to the left. But when it comes out and you shoot, so I am from the school of, there it is, of bare shafting arrows. Right, I bare shaft from the recurve days. It's just you bare shaft an arrow. I am not a fan of paper tuning. I am not a fan of that. I am not a fan. I don't know why, but I'm not. It doesn't give me the results I want. They're too inconsistent. I get more from watching that arrow fly than I do from paper tuning. I do. And it shouldn't be that far off. And if you can bare shaft it, it's not always going to be perfect. Your grip has so much to say about a bare shafted arrow that, and all I do is it's the exact same arrow that I would shoot minus I take a razor knife and slice the veins off so the bulk of the weight is still there. But that's the one that I just keep on hand. I have a target that I only shoot as a rule in the winter. I'll put some broadheads on just to fling an arrow, just to pull it back and make sure my peep is whatever. But when I finished these arrows last night, I got 2 veins on them. And I don't know, I looked at them and I'm like, I don't like how they're laying on. There's nothing wrong with them, especially if you put a little bit more glue on them. But for whatever reason, when I was done last night, I said, I'm not happy with it. So unfortunately, brand new veins, brand new wrap. And to make this is pretty straightforward. I just take a brand new razor blade and a knife, and it seems wasteful, but if I get into the woods and I don't feel like I've done everything I can to make this arrow perfect, then your confidence goes down. You have that second guess, that thought that I didn't do this to the best of my ability. So to fletch your own arrows, it's a pretty simple task, really, to be honest with you. Just cut it back off. Cut it back off. Now, they do make a special tool for this. This is my special tool. But get as much off as you can. Now, these particular shafts have the 75 grain half out in them. So I like to I go to where I get my medications. I go to that pharmacy and I requested 91% isopropyl alcohol. And this is just a regular shop rag. And so I take this and clean this, make sure you don't get stuff down inside your arrow. I had a couple newer shafts that I have an arrow saw, cut them down. I actually cut about a 1/2 inch off the knock end and then measure them. And then recut them from the other end. It seems like, and I don't have a shooting machine to gauge it with, but it seems, and I do have an arrow squaring tool, right? This is something I picked up, I don't know, I've had it a while, an arrow squaring tool. That's all right. So this arrow, if you put an expandable on like a Schwacker, which I love the 3-inch Schwackers, especially in a big old food plot, it doesn't, you can still knock tune them and spin the knocks, and it makes a difference. Get rid of this stuff. But one of the things I do, I guess, so I cut a 1/2 inch off of this end, square it up, put my knock in, I clean the knock, and I'll run a Q-tip down inside with a little isopropyl just to make sure I get the shavings out. And then I'll go back, get an arrow I already shoot, adjust the arrow saw, and then I'll slice them, and still I'll run this through the arrow squaring tool. I don't know how much of a difference it makes. Maybe it makes enough of a difference where it just makes a difference. But I do it just to make sure it's as square as I can get it. One of the things I do is I cut down the wraps. I want a smaller wrap. I like it for the visibility aspect. But I cut part of it off. That's all I need. I just need a little bit more where when you see it, it gives you better visibility. That's it. That's all I... So take these off. And I lay them on an old mouse pad. From days gone by, I guess, right? From the 90s and early 2000s. But that's cleaned up. And then I simply... And I don't use... One thing you'll notice is that I run all white veins. I use... There's a little bump on the knock. That's what I use. Now, what I probably should go back to running a one cock vein on this to make sure I know in a heated moment, like where am I at? But it is, I have two colors and I just think it was, it looks better. I don't know. All of my arrows are one wrap and in the same color vein and I know where it is. I mean, you can feel it. So when I do this, I simply line it up. I try to get it as close as I can to the knock end. Get my knife out of the way before but just an old mouse pad, and I line up the edge of the arrow with the wrap and press that down. And there you go. And then I'll take the isopropyl that I had and I just kind of squish it down a little bit, clean it up. But it's a shorter wrap. I think it looks neater. Now I do have some arrows from years ago. Right, here's one, for instance. That's got a cool wrap on it. I like that. Just one of those things. I guess I just got away from it. Those were cool wraps. I bought those down in Sagertown at that archery shop, but that's pretty cool. And that's got a schwacker on it. I really do. I like those schwackers. That's a nice broadhead. They do make a schwack too. They're a great broadhead. So once you have this, right now you can do with it what you will. So I have, I got about 4 arrows here that need some veins. So how do you do this? You simply take, spin this around just a little bit. There it is right there. So you take whatever color vein you need. I use the Fletch Tight. It's what I've always used, I guess. And then this one, because these are heavy enough up top, and because I have it, so I'm running a right helical on these, I have just a piece of something to keep that up because it wants to fall down a little bit. So this has like a little spring and ball system where when you turn this, it locks you into place. Right there. So I take my vein, gently put it in my jig. I'll get some isopropyl. There's probably enough on that rag. Clean my vein. And sometimes the glue will dry on you. But I run a pretty liberal bead down. I mean, let's see if it's coming out. Yep. I'll run it down once, typically. And then I'll kind of squish it on my way back through. And I know when it dries, it's going to give me, it may look a little heavy, but I would rather have it where my vein is not flying off. And what I'll do is I'll kind of lay this on here like this a little bit. And then I'll lay that paper in there. Make sure that everything is kind of locked in, and I'll just give it a little squish down just to make sure it seats itself. And same thing with the other one. Release it, spin it. Now the nice thing about this particular jig, let's make sure that's all the way back in there. The nice thing about this particular jig is you can do a 4-fletch. So, well, I guess I could tell you how long I've had this. So take your isopropyl, give it a wipe down just to get any crud off of it. So again, I start at the top, work it down. And then I give it just a little squish as I kind of go back up. I just want the glue to be thoroughly applied. I can't get away from the flies. And this lays down on this like this, and I just kind of give it a little squish. And then just make sure that's in there to keep it up a little bit. But again, make sure your arrow is seated. And it does take some time. When I bought this originally, it came with an 11-degree helical. I was more into kind of my recurve stuff with running some helical vanes. So this, let me grab this. I guess I can tell you how long I've had this. This was a 4-fletched vane from back in 2000 and 4-fletched arrow back in 2003. So I've had it for, I don't know, 20 plus years, easy. So that's the fun part. That is the enjoyment of creating that arrow. And you should be doing your own work where you become kind of one with it. So that's how I fletch an arrow. But all of this kind of stems from, when I see something, much like one of the broadheads that I was just cleaning up, and I'm like, I want to try. I just want to see how they fly. And it flew like a champ. I mean, just right to the target. The vented part of a fixed blade really helps. That is a key component. I know Dad has one or two bent ones in there, so it is what it is. But it's always fun to tie in the hunt with something else, to commemorate something. And so we're gonna try some snuffers this year. I'll have probably 3 in the quiver, 2 or 3, along with a couple of 3-inch Schwackers. I'm a fan of those. I'm just a fan of them, and that's a pretty good cut. That's a pretty good sized broadhead, but it was 100 grains, and so we'll see. But it is fun to go afield and have a little goal in the back of your mind, like, I want to use this broadhead, and this might be a fun addition. Every year I try something different and new, and I do like to stay consistent, but this is one that I like the fact that the blessing is you can shoot this and practice with the same arrow and sharpen it. The deer that I harvested in 2020 in Ohio, that arrow was one of these arrows here. It was one of these. It had kicked around and kicked around and kicked around. And there's nothing wrong with this one. This one actually that's an aluminum insert. But it's just one of those. I had a collar on the end. And the collars, you can get them. They have a different weight to them. But, right side, there we go. So it would look like this. There's nothing wrong with this arrow. It's still got a real nice looking wrap to it. And I believe I shot some Schwackers with these. I think I went with the 125 grain Schwacker and like 50 grains of brass. But, it's just fun to tinker. You think back to what you did and how you did it. And this is just another one of those that, right, a white knock. It's kind of cool with white wraps and orange on them and some white veins. And words of wisdom. Become one with your bow, right? Become one. Learn how your bow functions and how it works, and don't rely on somebody else to do the work for you. Do it for yourself. And I have my phone actually propped up in the bow vise. I'll show you. That when Charlie went out of business at CNC Archery, that was one of the things he was selling. And I'm like, oh, Charlie, I would like to have that. And he said, it's yours. And so those are the tools you need to work on stuff. For example, that bow press has kicked around, and I have cut it, and I have welded it. And I don't want to get rid of my halon because I may need to do something. But I welded those pieces, and that way I could press on the limbs, on the limb tips. I need to be able to work on my own peep sight. I need to be able to put a string on. So these are things that, I'm situated where I can work on my own. If I have an emergency, if I drop my bow from a tree stand, I do have my old switchback still. It's still right there. It still shoots an arrow. I would need to throw a little weight on the one side, and it still shoots the 340s. These arrows would fly out of it. I would probably have to do just a little bit of a resight because obviously it's not super fresh, which it should be, but that bow is, right? My recurve is one that I'm going to probably take out quite a bit this year, and but I want to be prepared. So, words of wisdom. Learn how to work on your own pieces and parts. Make sure you can, fletch your own arrows. Make sure you become self-sufficient when it comes to archery hunting. That's what it's about. It's about becoming one with that animal, and it should be a game of closeness, not of 50 yards, but a game of 8 yards. So, hey, we're down to about 2 months, right? August 3rd. We have 2. It's a long time. It's still 2 months, but you should be shooting and practicing and thinking about the hunt, getting yourself ready to go. So, words of wisdom from the archery bench. Oh, that's all kinds of fun stuff right there. Become one with the arrow. If you need anything, reach out. Kevin, Mahalik Outdoors.